Hi everybody, and welcome to this webinar on the art of pricing. So just while we're waiting for everybody to log in, let's just talk about a few things. So on the right hand side, you'll see a chat button. So I'd encourage you to ask whatever questions you want in that chat. And at certain stages of the presentation, I'll stop and I'll answer all of those questions for you. Is that good with you guys? So we'll just give another couple of minutes now and let everyone get in. So just back from the US, it was a really good week last week. We were at the Texas School of Photography and it was a really special event. So I hope some of you guys from Texas are tuning in. So just let us know where you're coming from. Put into the chat, introduce yourself and say where you're from. And we get going now in a couple of seconds. So I can see you all coming in there. That's good. So just to recap on that, so you'll see the chat on your right-hand box there. Keep the questions coming in there. And at certain stages of the presentation, I'll stop and I'll try and answer those for you. So you're all very welcome. So we're going to start now in a couple of seconds. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring up a short presentation of slides. So I'm staying live with you through the whole thing. We'll walk through those slides, ask your questions, and we'll stop at certain stages and go through them. So let's get going. So again, welcome to the art of pricing. So why have we put this work together? Well, we're not photographers and never claim to be. However, we talk to thousands and thousands of photographers every single year. And we have thousands and thousands of customers across 43 countries now around the world. So we gather all that data. And one of the questions we often hear when we interact with our clients is when we show them a beautiful product like this. In the first three questions, we're asked, what can I charge for this? And the answer is, always, we don't know. And the reason why we don't know is there's a whole lot of factors that depends on what price you can set for your product. That is who your customer is, where you're located, what genre of photography, and then what the actual product is. But I hope that in this webinar, we'll answer a lot of those questions for you. And in business, pricing is one of the most difficult things to get right. We all struggle with pricing. We struggle at times with our pricing. But pricing is absolutely critical to success. And unless you get your pricing absolutely right, your business can fail and fail quickly. And none of us are in business to break even, right? We're all there to make a living, make a profit so we can reinvest it in our business and build a successful, sustainable business for the future. So we'll be looking at some key aspects of pricing in this presentation. And we'll actually get into designing a price list, and we'll be applying really important critical success principles that will help you create that prices that will help you sell more. So before we start, who am I? Well, I'm Ronan Ryle. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder and CEO of 3XM, and I've had many failures in my career. In fact, there's probably no business mistake that you have made or haven't made yet that I haven't made. However, you have to fail to learn, and you can't be afraid of failure. The other thing is, and being on this webinar just shows how interested you are in learning. And all through my career, I believe that you should have this attitude of learning every single day and looking outside your industry to learn as well. I live by two mantras in life. One is success equals IQ minus ego plus hard work. And the second one by the great Winston Churchill, when he said, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. It's a great quotation. I have that in my mind every day, because when you do fail, you go, that's not the end of it, let's keep going. When you have some success, you say, well, we can keep going and build on that success to date. And having the courage just to continue through and battle through business is really, really important. So let's get into the details of the presentation. And before we get into the pricing specifics, value is really, really important to understand. And there's 5 pillars to value. And your mentality around these pillars is absolutely vital to success. So no one's going to value you if you don't value yourself first. That's a key thing. You've got to value who you are. And then more important, you've got to value the work that you do. So if you don't value the photography and experiences you create, however is your client going to do it? However, when you get those 2 building blocks sorted, then, and you start to give your client what they value and understand what do they value, then it's really important, and this is critical to success, is that you have to give them an experience that they value. So they must value the total experience of creating the photography memories that you create for them. And finally, then you've got to value the products you offer and truly believe in the products and the companies that supply those products. So in summary, you've got to value yourself and your work. If you don't, nobody else will, and you'll be fighting a losing battle. You must value the experience you give your clients and the products you sell. People are intuitive and they'll pick up on your enthusiasm and passion, or if that's lacking, they'll also see through that. And once you start to value yourself, selling becomes a lot easier. A lot of photographers say, I struggle with selling, but it's really that most photographers who can't sell, they haven't solved those 5 value issues first. So who is your customer? This is a really important thing to consider. And it's only when you actually know who your customer is, can you bring value to them. Because if you don't know what makes them tick, well, then you're not going to supply them the products and services and experience that they require. And understanding that is critical. And then it's the principle of the right client. So not everyone is your client, and you shouldn't try and have everyone as a customer. The ultimate objective that you have in business is to try and identify who is your customer and then target and focus all your marketing around that. And that's not going to happen overnight, and it takes time. So you've got to be very, very patient. And what I'm not saying is that you go out tomorrow and say, I'm not dealing with that client anymore, because until you've got an order book that's full, you may have to do work for clients that aren't your ideal client until you get to a stage when you can fill your order book with those clients who have higher average order values and who give you the living and return that you want. To start identifying your ideal client, there's certain tools you can use. And one of those is, what is the marketing generations and what do they require? And once you understand that and you understand the persona of your client, what marketing generation they're from, you can start to tailor your marketing efforts towards them. So let's just discuss for a quick second the marketing generations, because some of you may not have heard about the marketing generations. So the marketing generations are created around certain key criteria that are unique to each generation. So just as an example of that, Generation Y and Generation Z, they're the 2 generations, the last 2 generations. And Generation Z, the last Generation Z person was born about a second ago, yeah? And the oldest is 24 years of age now. But one key difference between the 2 marketing generations is Generation Z use social media completely different to Generation Y. We won't be able to go into that tonight or today because we have a lot of stuff to go through. This, I could talk about 3 hours about this on its own. However, in the coming weeks, we have an upcoming webinar that goes into the specifics of finding, marketing, and selling to Generation Z. So keep an eye out on 3XM Insiders and we get to that in the future. The other thing in the sales scenario, so we've talked about briefly about the marketing and tailoring your marketing. The other thing is in a sales scenario is if you can get this into your head, IBUILD, which is a lens you should bring to every single client. And IBUILD stands for initiator. So in every sales scenario, there's somebody in your customer group that has initiated the booking call or the interest in hiring you as a photographer. Then there's the buyer, so the person who actually buys the product. And then there's the user. So let's take a family example where you have a teenager. So what do you think the teenager might want out of a photographic session? They'll probably want a wonderful image for their Instagram profile. So if you understand that and you understand the different requirements of each user, it allows you to tailor your offering to satisfy all those users who are in the group. Then there's the influencer. So that's somebody who's going to buy something. Go back to the teenager example. If you understand the personality profile that the teenager within the group represents on Instagram, and you create a photograph that helps them represent that, then they will encourage mom and dad to buy more product. Simply by understanding that. It's like McDonald's with the Happy Meal, yeah? We all go to McDonald's with our kids because our kids want to get the toy and the Happy Meal and they drag us along. The lodge keeper or the gatekeeper is probably dad. He'll have his hand on the wallet and he won't want to open it as much as mum does. And the decision maker is probably mum. She'll give a wink to dad and she'll try and encourage dad to spend more. And there'll be a negotiating going on between the two of them in that family portrait session. You can guarantee that happens. And most of you probably agree with me on that when you think about it with that. So let's just talk about the competition. So yes, it's really important when you're doing your pricing that you consider your competition. However, too many photographers get absolutely hung up on this. So let's just talk about competition in a little bit more detail. So it is important to understand who your direct competitors are and who your indirect competitors are. And of course, it helps to understand where they're positioning themselves in the market. Are they going after a certain genre of customer or a particular age group of customer? It's also important to understand what they're charging. However, don't get hung up on what they're charging, because I often hear from photographers, well, the going rate in my area for wedding photography is X amount of money. And a lot of photographers think, well, I have to be in that price bracket just to do that. But that's not true. A recent experiment that we did with a photography studio who weren't charging a sitting fee, we simply introduced with them a sitting fee for their service. And guess what that did? It actually started to distinguish them from all the other photographers who were cheaper in their area. And straight away, customers started to see some value in that and that they're different. And I must be getting more because they're charging more for it. And it's really important then to find ways to differentiate yourself in the market and do something that's different than your competition. So don't get put off by your competition. Just be aware of what they're doing and how they're doing it, and then tailor your needs to what you want to do and find ways to distinguish yourself in the market. So sell time, this is an interesting concept. And it has been proven that people who have a special experience and have an emotional attachment to what happens in a sales scenario or a photographic session actually attach more value to it than the money it costs. And that works across all types of business, and it's also relevant to photography. So you've got to sell your client an experience and give them an experience that they'll absolutely cherish forever. Another thing that I see a lot with photographers is they actually haven't put a value on their hourly rate as to what they do. And that's a really good thing to do, because it starts to get you to think about, if you know what your hourly rate is, how much time am I spending on an activity or something else in the business, and am I getting my return on investment on that? And remember that what you create as a photographer, it's a legacy product for your customer. It's like art. It actually becomes more valuable in time to your clients. If you ask consumers today about photography, they say as time goes on, they value what has been bought from their professional photographer more as time goes on. So it's really important that you build that within your sales process and you let your clients know this, because we're all humans. We don't actually figure this stuff out in ourselves. You have to tell them. This is a great quote by the great Oscar Wilde, and I love it. What's a cynic? A man who knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. So before we get into actually creating a price list and using the 9 pricing principles, let's just briefly discuss the interaction stages, what we call the interaction stages of a shoot. And at all these stages, you're selling. And the first interaction, of course, is the consultation pre-shoot. So it's important that all the way through the consultation that you're educating your client as to what they can expect. Any consultation pre-shoot can be done on the phone, it can be done on Skype, or it can be done in person if they actually visit your studio for it. It's important that you explain to them exactly what your service entails, what's involved in it, and what they can expect on the day of the shoot. It's important to engage them by asking questions. Ask open questions. If you ask a closed questions, which the answer can be a no or a yes, it's far less effective than an open question. And a great open question is why. Why are you booking this photo shoot with me, or why are you interested in this photo shoot? Make sure you discuss pricing, but not too early in the conversation. We'll talk about that in a few moments. But it is important that they understand the price of everything. You don't, however, give a price until you've absolutely built some trust. And we'll talk about that a little in a few seconds when we get into the 5 success building blocks to a successful booking process. So most people use a frame of reference to deflect that question. So they might say, well, my prices start at 300 and some people spend 10,000, but you only have to buy what you love. what I create that you love. There's no pressure on you to buy anything. Make sure that you prepare them to what to wear at the shoot. This is really important. So, for example, I've gone into photographic studios where they have a whole lot of different backgrounds, and the client turns up on the day wearing something that doesn't suit that background. However, if you know the style of photography that the client wants in advance, which you can learn at the pre-consultation, you can have the relevant backgrounds ready, and you can have them armed as to what to wear. And make sure that you show them the products, if they are in studio and in person with you, that they can buy. And if they're not in studio with you, you can send them a link to a guide that has some of those products reflected in it. So these are my 5 building blocks for a successful consultation pre-shoot. So 1, you've got to educate the client as to what they can expect all the way through. When they make contact with you, this is critical. Until you build the trust, stay within the platform they contact you on. So if they contact you on Messenger, stay within Messenger, ask those open questions until you build a trust, and then try and get them into that consultation one-on-one. And that consultation can be on phone, or it is possible even to complete the booking on Messenger. Some people, and especially the younger generation, they actually don't like the phone. Quite often they like to stay within the platform that they're dealing with you on. Don't avoid the price question, we've talked about it already, but instead give them a frame of reference. And the next success one is something that a lot of people miss, and I see it in every sales scenario, is that they don't ask for the sale. And I encounter photographers who go through everything, talk me through everything, but then don't ask me for the booking, because it's the booking for the photo shoot that's the sale in this scenario. And then make sure you prepare them for the shoot, that they understand where they have to park, what clothes they have to wear, what have they bring with them, are you doing a change of clothes as well, how long is the shoot going to take, and all those questions should be answered up front, that there's no surprises for your client. So then we've done the shoot, and now we're at the post-consultation of the shoot. So when the shoot finishes, don't just send them away. Do a product walkthrough with them and show them what products you have on offer for sale. Let them touch them, let them feel them, let them interact with them. Run through your price list again with them and show them your price list of collections, what's included with each. Some photographers think that by waiting to present price at the viewing stage, that it gives them an advantage. It absolutely doesn't. By giving your client a price list at this stage actually prepares them in advance. And they'll come in with a pre-negotiated agreement with their partner in the case of a family portrait shoot as to what they might spend. But invariably, if you do the viewing right, they'll actually agree to spend more. But at least they're not coming in blind, not knowing what the price is. Make sure you arrange the date and time for the return of the viewing and make that booking there and then with when they're going to come back. Make sure they're all available to come back for the viewing. And then make sure that they leave again with a clear, concise, printed price list at this stage with them so that they can review that and go through it and make sure that that looks really, really well. So the viewing, when they come back for the viewing, when they come in, make them feel at ease and give them a drink, a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a biscuit if you can go to that, and make sure they're comfortable because you have to make this an occasion. The successful photographers we see start with showing them a slideshow to music because that absolutely builds their emotion. Then show them the photos. And some of you will be doing what we call a digital viewing. So you'll be projecting the images onto a wall or using a TV to use those images. The more successful photographers are showing them in print and they're doing a print viewing. We recommend a print viewing. Why do we recommend a print viewing? The photographers who've adopted a print viewing are more than doubling their average order value. It also means that it's not as hard to sell. It's much easier for your client to make their decisions. They can interact with their product. They can walk away, and this is the absolute critical success factor. They walk away from the viewing with the product. So it works really, really well. I'm not going to talk about print viewings much more, but if you haven't yet done it, you've got to consider that. So how do you sell it? So when you do a print viewing and they come back, you will have all the images. You'll do a couple of things. So this picture here shows an example of a reveal wall where all the images are laid out on a wall, which is many ways you can do this. So you can do it with what we call the secret box reveal. So when the client comes in, and we find this works really, really well with family portraiture. So when the family comes in, you have the box, you show the slideshow, and you present the box to the woman. The woman will open that box, she'll put it on the table in front of her, she'll start passing those images around, and they end up with what we call the sofa shuffle. So they'll end up with 3 piles of images, the ones that they really, really like, the ones that they like, and the ones that they're not sure about. And you go through that process. And we'll talk you through that over the next couple of weeks and months as to how to do that effectively. And then, of course, there's the McIntyre flip. And the McIntyre flip was invented by Stuart McIntyre, a really successful photography studio in England who've recently adopted their print viewing, are more than tripling their average sale on family portraiture since they started to do it. And the McIntyre flip is where you present the box and then you take the images they like and you start to put them on the wall. And again, we'll have a lot of content over the coming months as to how to implement that in a successful way. So in summary, what are the benefits of a print viewing to your customer? Well, instant gratification. They leave on the day with the product. They have the digital files in there that they can start sharing immediately. They have more choice. So a lot of people today, and especially the younger generations of Y and Z, they want not just quality, but quantity. They don't just want one image for the wall. They want multiple images. How many times a day do you see Generation Y and Z taking a selfie of themselves? That's their psyche. They're used to taking loads and loads of images. A lot of photographers just sell wall art. And if you're trying to sell wall art to me, it's a nightmare for me because you should see me with a hammer and nail. It's an absolute disaster. I destroy the place. So really, if you do sell wall art, and something that I see a lot of photographers do sell wall art, you should offer your client a hanging service to go and hang it for them. That would really encourage me to buy wall art if you were selling wall art to me. But they've got a little piece of history. This box will last forever. It's a legacy product. It's a product that they can pass on to future generations. But not only that, you can see this new window box that we've just launched. It's nearly like a piece of wall art in that there's a picture on display all the time. And the other advantage of that is a lot of people today now, they live in apartments. And if you look at architecture and modern architecture, there's a lot of windows now being put into buildings. What does a lot of windows mean? It means less wall space. So the modern homes have less wall space than they did before. The touch and feel, they touch and feel and leave with it on the day. And that tangible touch is what helps achieve the sale as well. I'm a sad person. I've actually spent time studying women shopping in boutiques. And the process, if there's any of you there who've seen this, or any of you who are women, in fact, when you go into boutiques, you flick through, and when you find something you like, you take it out, you look at it, you feel it, you interact with it, and then you decide whether to try it on or not. And once you try it on, that's it, you want it. So think about this in terms of a print viewing when your client has the product and it's them. They're not imagining their pictures in the product. It's physically them. They don't want to give themselves back to you. They want to buy it all and leave on the day. There's less buyer's remorse. So buyer's remorse is the principle that anything you buy, whether it's a bar of chocolate, a new car, or a house, you go through a process as a human saying, have I made the right decision and have I bought the right thing? So if your client leaves your viewing with nothing, how much buyer's remorse is going on there than if your client leaves with a physical product that they can start sharing there and then? Just think about that one. And then you satisfy the share. So we encourage all photographers, if you sell something in print, sell the digital file and price appropriately. Maximize the sale in that IPS scenario, that in-person sales scenario, because they don't come back. It's seldom that a customer comes back and spends more later. I've yet to see a photographer where that happens in more than 1 out of 20 cases. And in fact, I'd say it's closer to 1 in 100. But measure it yourself and prove me wrong. So the benefits for you, the photographer, so you would increase your average order value by at least double by adopting the sales process. You'll also bring the money in earlier because a lot of photographers only get, say, 50% when the order is placed at the viewing, and they don't get paid the other 50 till the product comes in. Some of you might get 100 up front, but there's a lot of photographers out there who's not like that. There's more time for you then to concentrate on doing more shoots. So some photographers stop at that stage of the sales process, maximize the sale then, while other photographers do go on and sell wall art thereafter, which is fine as well. There's instant referrals. So we've seen some of our customers get up to 4 instant referrals when the client leaves on the day of the viewing, because they're so excited. They've been built up with the slideshow. They're at the top of emotion. They leave with the product. They're over the moon. So they start referring instantly. There's no lead time. So there's no lead times for you waiting for products to come back, you seeing them, trying to get your client back. And if you sell albums, there's no album design time. Yes, you have some pre-preparation work to present all the images, but we believe that you shouldn't anyway be presenting files in a digital viewing that haven't been retouched, because you're not showing the client what the end product is. You're not maximizing the opportunity there anyway. So any questions? Have we had any questions that have come in? Let me have a quick look here now. I'm going to have to borrow my glasses for this bit because I have to read. Hello, Pam from San Francisco. You're very welcome. And we've people from Italy and Texas, the UK, Liverpool, excellent. Cambridge are here, London are here, Quebec are here. Excellent. John from New York, I'm from Germany. Hi, everybody. Okay, so any questions come in there? Zena, have we any questions? Have I missed any questions? No, no questions. Oh, you guys, I mustn't be bringing you anything new, or you've seen all this before. I'm just doing a good job presenting. Okay, so let's move on then, the numbers. So this is where a lot of photographers go asleep, the numbering piece. So please just bear with me through this, because we're going to go through the numbers with just some key things that you need to understand before you get into creating your price list. So the first one is average order value. An average order value is a really good way to measure trends over time. And it's calculated by taking your total sales and revenue and dividing it by the number of your sales. That's the academic definition of it. However, my definition of it for photography is you take your total sales and divide it by the total number of your shoots. And I'll explain the reason why in a moment. So knowing your average order value, it's really important to be careful in how you calculate it. And we're going to do an example in a second. And the reason for that is some people, when they calculate their average order value, they don't include every single shoot they do. Because with photography is different than any other sales scenario in that not every shoot you do results in a sale. So for me, you've got to count those no sales in calculating your average order value. Depending on which you do, this will drastically change your average order value, because some people just include the ones that they get the sale, some photographers, and some actually include the number of shoots. So this can cause confusion when photographers compare average order values to others. And they quite often think that their average order value is less than half of maybe someone they're talking to. But that's not the case. Let's have a look. So in the example that's on the screen, on the left-hand side, example 1, we have a photographer who's got 8,400 worth of revenue. And on the right, we have a photographer in example 2 with exactly the same number of revenue. They've both done the same number of shoots, 10. And they've both had 5 that's resulted in a sale. However, the example 1, where the photographer is dividing the total sales or total revenue by the total number of shoots, 10, is getting an average order value of 840. The photographer in example 2 is taking the same revenue, but is dividing it by the number of shoots that resulted in a sale and is getting $1,680. Now, if you were photographer in example 1 with 840 and you were talking to photographer 2 and they said, my average is 1680, you would think they're doing a much better job than you are and their average value is much greater. But in fact, it's not. It's just how it's been calculated. So the next time you're comparing your average order value with another photographer, be sure to ask them, and how did you calculate your average order value? To make sure you're comparing the same methodology, apples are apples and oranges were oranges. Markup and margin is an important consideration to understand before you start doing your price list. And markup, you've got to think about cost. So you take your selling price, you take away the cost of the product, and you divide it by the cost price of that product and multiply it by 100 to turn it to a percentage. So in the example on the screen, you sell it for 1,000. The cost of product you're selling is 200. You divide it by the cost of product 200, multiply it by 100, and you get a markup of 400%. However, margin is on the sales. So you're thinking about the sales. So again, you're taking the sales price, taking away the cost price, dividing it by the selling price, and multiplying it by 100. So in this instance, it's 100 minus the cost of product 200 divided by 1,000. Multiply by 100 to give you 80% margin. So a lot of people get mixed up between markup and margin. One way to know the difference is if somebody quotes you a margin greater than 100%, that's not possible. So again, if you're comparing markups and margins with fellow photographers, just understand these principles to make sure the person you're talking to actually understands the principles too and are giving you actual facts. overhead costs, and I'm not talking about tennis. All of you probably know that I'm a mad tennis fan, qualified tennis coach, much better coach than I am a player. But anyway, overhead costs break down to two principal things. You have your fixed cost and your variable cost. And the easiest way to understand this is a fixed cost is a cost you have regardless of how many shoots you do. So for example, if you rent a studio and the studio is costing you £1,000, let's just take a figure, £1,000 a month. Whether you do 1 shoot a month or 100 shoots a month, you have that cost. However, if you do, say, glamour or makeover photography, and you hire a freelance, outsourced hair and makeup person, and you only pay them for each shoot they do, that cost is a variable cost, because if you don't have a shoot, you don't have the cost. So any questions on that? I see a couple of questions coming up. Will you send us these slides? Yes, of course, you can get the slides. We'll post the slides in 3XM Insiders after the event, and we'll share those with you. Are you talking about unmounted or mounted images in the folio? Absolutely mounted. So the images should be mounted, that they have a perceived high quality. And if you've seen our products before, you know that we always sell our boxes, folio boxes with mounts. What resources do I use to find my preferred client? Really, really interesting. So the best way is to understand your current clientele, understand the vehicle they drive, understand where they live, the clothes they make, what their interests are, and you start to build a profile persona of your ideal client. And once you have that, then you can use that as a way to target in your marketing that you're attracting more of those clients. So those of you who understand social media marketing, so you can actually create what is called lookalike audiences in Facebook. So if you understand what your current customers is, you can actually go to Facebook and say, Facebook, find more customers who look like my current customer. Great advice so far. Yes, one question. I don't have a studio and work on location most of the time. It's often difficult to bring all the frame samples, box, etc. How would I get around that to show my clients some products? I would just bring 1 or 2 and give your client either a link to a product guide or present them with the physical product. But just bring your key 2 products that are within the products that you want to sell. Colorado here. Welcome, Colorado. And we have somebody in from London. I think that's all the questions for now. So let's move on. So we're going to do another poll in a second. And after that poll, we're going to come back and discuss the 9 pricing principles. And they are simple numbers, the power of 9, price anchoring, price bundling, avoiding too much cost, how to use the cost multiplier, the power of context, loss aversion, and free is free. So we're going to run a poll now, and the poll we're going to run is the average order value. So do you currently know what your average order value is? So we'll publish the results of that poll at the end. I'm just going to call up the next set of slides now. Hello, fill out that poll. Back in a second. So have we got those poll results? They're still coming in. Come on, guys, get those results in so we can publish them for you. Excluding VAT if you're registered for VAT and including VAT if you're not. That was a question from Europe where we've got VAT and not sales tax for our American and Canadian visitors. So quite often in Europe, we present our prices to our consumer including VAT, while in the US, I think it's more, most photographers will present excluding sales tax, and sales tax is added to the price that's quoted to the consumer. So 22%, is that the result? So 22% don't know yet, 30% less than 500, and we have 38% 500 to 1,000, 8% at between 1 and 2,000. Okay, excellent, thank you for that. Okay, so the 9 pricing principles, let's discuss these in detail. So we've already mentioned what they are, so let's just dig right on in there. So the first one is simple numbers, and this is a really simple principle to apply. And it basically is along the principle that you drop any commas, point zero zeros, and any currency symbol. And they've proven by doing that, that you actually make the price you quote to your client appear to be less. They're exactly the same numbers in all these three examples on the screen. However, people will perceive the 1499 as being cheaper. The other thing with regards to currency symbol is they've proven with research that the currency symbol leads people to think about cost rather than value. So simply by dropping that currency symbol changes what goes on in the human brain with regards to value and price and cost. So that's a really easy one to employ, yeah? We can get started on that straight away. The power of 9, and it's quite often known as charm pricing, and you'll see this in most retail environments where they end the price with a 9. It's been proven that the number 9 has much more powerful views of value in the client brain than any other number. So let me give you an example of this. So this was research done where they actually had 3 dresses for sale. They sold it at 3 different prices. The first price they sold at was $34. Then they put the same dress out at $39. And they put the same dress out at $44. The dress at $39 not only outsold in volume the same dress at $44, but also outsold it when it was cheaper at $34. So that was an example that was done by a university just to prove that this charm pricing idea works. Price anchoring, and this is really, really interesting. So they've proven, and it has been proven, that people rely on the first bit of information that they get when making a decision. And it's also been proven that placing a premium product next to a standard product makes the standard product look like a bargain. And let's just run a test on this now. So for example, if I told you a watch was $2,000, you might say that's very expensive. But if I place that 2,000 watch beside a watch that's 10,000, now the 2,000 one doesn't look so expensive, does it? It's also been proven, and you'll probably see this in your own prices, when you offer an option of 3 things, 70 to 80% pick the middle option. A lot of photographers are taught to only have 3 packages, but we absolutely believe and have proven that a 4th one works. And we'll explain that when we get to the prices, how it works in great detail. But a 4th elite package will actually sell more of your current top package. There was a test done by a coffee manufacturer, and the test they did was they had 2 coffee machines. One was available at $80 and one was available at $120. And what happened was 90% of sales went on the $80 coffee machine. They then introduced another coffee machine at much higher, at $380. What do you think happened? Well, what happened was 70% of people started to buy the $120 machine. So it went from 10% of people buying it to 70% simply by putting that higher price machine. It showed greater value in the middle package. Price bundling. Price bundling is the principle of not breaking everything out, but actually have a collection of packages. And the industry that does this really, really well is the car industry. So in the car industry, they normally have a number of models within a particular car type. And within each model, they'll bundle extras in there. So for example, one model might have electric seats and electric mirrors and a sunroof in it. And then the next model up within the same car has all those, plus boots that open automatically or built-in Wi-Fi or whatever might go on in there. So the car industry do this really, really well. Rather than giving you the basic car price and a list of a whole load of extras that you have to decide what you want, they bundle it into a model. Avoid too much choice. So a lot of photographers I see on their price list, they have a whole load of choice. And they mistakenly think that by offering a whole load of choice to their end client, that their client will actually spend more with them. And it's been proven that the opposite takes place. Too much choice results in decision fatigue, where your client is just so overwhelmed with everything that's in front of them, they can't make a decision. When they can't make a decision, they choose not to buy. And this results in fewer sales for you. So it's important that your price list is absolutely clear and concise, easy to understand, and not too much choice. The cost of goods multiplier. So this is something that you hear a lot of photographers talking about, where they set their pricing based on taking the price of the product and multiplying it by a figure of 3, 5, 7, or 10. A lot of photographers are on 3 and 5 multipliers, but the holy grail is to try and get to 10, and that can take a little bit of time to get there. But at least if you understand the principle, you can measure your success over time as you move through the pricing model to achieve that. The power of context. So the power of context is really, really important. So let's just take an example. So you can go into a store down the road and buy a bottle of beer for $1.99. And yet you're quite happy in a 5-star hotel to pay $7 for exactly the same beer. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the product is the same, but just where you're located and the environment and the experience that's going on by buying and consuming that product is so different that you're willing to pay more. So that's really important that you understand that principle as a photographer so that you can build that into everything you do and that you make that connection with your client, give them the experience they want. They will spend more if you do that. Loss aversion. So this can be probably one of the most difficult pricing principles to understand, but it's basically on the principle that in the human brain, losses loom larger than gains. So apparently it's been proven psychologically that the power of loss is twice as hard of us in here than the power of gaining. So there was an experiment done in 2 petrol stations, and in 2 petrol stations, in petrol station A, they sold a gallon of petrol for $1.20. And in petrol station B, they sold it for $2. But in petrol station A, there was a 20-cent charge on top of the 180 if you used your credit card. While in petrol station B, there was a 20-cent reduction if you paid with cash. And they measured the satisfaction of customers over time in those 2 scenarios. And it was proven that where there was the discount for cash rather than being penalized for paying with your credit card, that they were far happier clients, even though both clients were paying exactly the same amount of money for the petrol using their credit card. So how does that apply to a photographic studio? Well, how it applies is if you currently charge an extra fee if your client pays you with a credit card, don't. Instead, take that fee, add it to your current prices, and then offer a reduction for cash if you choose to do so. So free means free. So this is the principle of no hidden extras. A hidden extra will put your client off. And a simple example of where this happened was Amazon in France. Amazon in France couldn't understand why their average sale per head of population was 20% less than it was in every other country. And when they actually delved into it to discover the why, they found that there was a technical glitch in their systems. And while they were advertising free shipping, the system was actually charging a 20-cent, which is a very small shipping charge, a 20-cent shipping charge. And even though it was so small, it was actually reducing their sales. Once they did away and fixed the IT glitch, their sales returned to the average they had in every other country. So if you're going to offer something for free, absolutely it has to be free. And please don't have any surprises for your client with regards to what they have to pay. So any questions? Again, I'm going to have to put on my glasses till I have a look. And we have a few questions, have we? So average order value, including or excluding VAT for Poles. So you're based in Europe, the question is coming from. So my answer to that was that if you're registered for VAT, well, then you don't need to include it. But if you are not registered for VAT, you need to include it. I hope that's answered your questions. With the 3 price options, would you add the cheapest option first or last? Good question. And when we look at the prices, you'll see how we've laid out an example price list. And our cheapest price list is on the bottom right-hand corner. So we'll have a look at that. Guests, will this webinar be available via YouTube at a later date? I hope so. I'd like to rewatch and share. The webinar is not available on YouTube. There will be replays on a regular basis. However, in our 3XM Insiders, I've pre-recorded all these principles in a much shorter 30-minute slot that you can access at any time and go into the principles. Is the multiplier different for smaller price products? For example, 5 at 100 items seems reasonable, but 5 at a print cost of 2 is not. That's a really good question. And when you look at our price list, you'll see that we don't actually suggest that you have really low cost items. But yes, of course, if it's a low cost item, you may need to be on a multiplier of 10, 15, 20 times, you know. So if it's a 10 by 8 print that's costing you $2, you may want to put that in 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. So I'm mainly talking about higher price products. Is that all the questions for now? How do you sign up to become an insider? Good question. So at the end of the webinar, if you go to your Facebook page and seek out 3XM Insiders, apply to join that, and we'll approve you once we identify that you are a professional photographer. So here's an example price list. Now, this is not the pretty version. So this was one part of a price list we created, and there was a whole style guide before it and all that. So I'm only showing you the pricing page. But let's just discuss some of it in here and what's going on here. So you'll see that we have 3 main collections, and we have our Elite Experience, which is way more in price than any other product or any other offering. You can see that we're bundling items together, but we also have an a la carte. You'll see the items we want to sell, both in the a la carte and over here end in 9. And you'll also see that we have payment plans. And we'll talk about that a little later. We do have a setting fee, but you'll also see that we have this full price on the day. So this is a technique quite often used to encourage the purchase at the viewing on the day, that it's cheaper for them to purchase on the day. Okay, so let's move on. And please ignore the actual numbers that are in there, yeah? It's the principles that apply, because every photographer will have a different price. But you'll see we use simple numbers in the price list. So we didn't have any currency symbol. We used the power of 9, so everything we wanted to sell ended in a 9. We were price anchoring with that Elite package up on the left. We were bundling, so we were putting within each collection a number of products. And we were avoiding too much choice. It's really easy looking at that price list to make up your mind what you want to buy. Okay. So the analysis, and I talked about this a couple of minutes ago. So again, we have the viewing day price and the full price. So the viewing day price is less than the full price to encourage that to absolutely happen on the day. You'll also see that our middle collection B is our desired average order value. Now, not our current average order value, but where we're trying to move our average order value to. And the reason for that was, as we said earlier, 70 to 80% will migrate towards that middle package. And we've offered the bundling. So the collections with a whole load of stuff in there is a much better way, like the car industry do. Digital files, and this is a debate that happens all the time. And many photographers say, I don't want to sell digital. I don't want to sell the digital file. And I say, I understand that. It's really hard to have a business built on where you just shoot and burn. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about selling the digital file when it's bundled with the printed item. And why should you do that? Well, the reason why you should do it is that today, the generation Y and Z have an absolute psychological connection with that digital file. And if you tell them you don't sell digital files, more and more of your inquiries on phone or messenger or however else they come in will not turn into a booking. So instead, it's better for you to work out a business model that maximizes the sale in that IPS scenario. And you're not worried about them ever coming back. If they insist on a digital-only package, well, then price it that the collection that you're offering in print is a no-brainer. So in our example of the price list, we had 10 digital file package at $1,200, but our entry-level package was, I think, $1,489. So the client will see the value of leaving with this, with 20 matted, or your matted prints, your digital files, your slideshow on there, your gallery to go with it, all together as against just getting the digital file. You're showing the value there. So you're winning and your client is winning. So going back to the example prices, so did I get the numbers right? It was actually 1,289. So my 10 digital files was 1,200 and my C package was 1,289. Yeah, so the client will see the difference in value there if you adopt the right pricing strategy. Setting fees, and this is something we discussed a little bit earlier, and they are optional, and a lot of photographers use the free setting fee to bring the customer in and try and sell from there. And that's fine if that works for you. However, you might experiment in certain genres of photography you do charge a setting fee. And of course, if you do makeover or glamour, where you're doing hair and makeup, you have to charge a setting fee to at least cover that cost for you. That cost is absolutely covered. Some photographers use the setting fee as a form of deposit, and others use it as an upsell tool in the viewing room. So what do I mean by that? So if they pay a sitting fee, some photographers do, when your client spends over a certain amount, that sitting fee comes off the price. Now, you don't offer the sitting fee off regardless of what they buy, but once they reach over your average order value, your desired average order value, you might consider offering that as a discount at that stage and use that as a further incentive to upsell your client in the viewing. Payment plans. And payment plans for us, from what we see, the photographers who are using it, is a critical success factor to increasing the sale. Because if you think about this, most people now are used to spreading payments for things over the phone or over time. So even like a mobile phone plan, like the phone companies do this, where you pay a vastly reduced amount for the phone, and they basically incorporate the rest of the cost of the phone over a period of the contract period that you're paying for monthly. The other people who do this is obviously white goods. You know, you can go in and you can buy a new washing machine or a fridge and spread the payment over time. So it's part of our culture now. So you need to consider that. And there are multiple providers on the market who offer that service. So I'm aware of some providers who would charge, say, they would charge about 10% of what you offer for credit. So quite often how they operate is, if you have a sale for 1,000, that your client pays you 250 and the other 750 is paid over 12 months. The credit risk remains with the credit provider, and they pay you, the credit provider pays you 90% of what is put on credit. So it's a really good way to do it. If you are going to offer your own scheme, just be careful. There's certain rules about what you can actually do as a business. Once you go over certain time periods, you have to maybe register as a credit provider. So just familiarize yourself with those rules too. Online galleries. Now I'm going to get really controversial. So there's many trainers in the world who say, forget online galleries, you will never sell online, you will not have a business, and they are right. However, they are wrong in the sense of using an online gallery not to sell products and to earn your revenue from, but as a referral and marketing tool. So at 3XM, we bundle a gallery with every single premium folio box you buy. And the reason why we do that is our consumer research shows that your client wants to be able to access those images that they buy from you in print and digitally across multiple devices. So by facilitating your client to access those images on their mobile actually brings referrals. So let's just discuss how that might be the case. So with a 3XM gallery, your client can actually save it as an app on their phone, as a screen. And if they're having a cup of coffee with a friend, they can access that, show their friend the images, because I'm not going to bring the big box probably, yeah, if they're having a cup of coffee. So they can share the images there, and your details are there as a photographer. So their friend says, oh, they're wonderful, who's the photographer? They click on it, and they might even go through and make a booking there. So that's why we suggest you use an online gallery. Your client wants to access the images they buy from you across multiple media and across multiple platforms. And that also holds true for the USB. So most of you who are existing clients will know that in our folio boxes, you can buy it with or without a USB. We encourage photographers to buy it with a USB because a lot of clients will have smart TVs, and it's really easy for them to plug and play the USB and do a slideshow on their television. So again, it's back to this principle of easy access to images, easy display, easy share. It's those three simple principles. Some people say, well, sure, the USB is going to be out of date in time. That just adds to the nostalgia. I take out my parents' wedding album and it's photographs stuck on a piece of card with a bit of tissue over it. It's all yellow with all the paper, but that just adds to the nostalgia, the same way as the USB will add to the nostalgia for future generations. I can't believe my parents or grandparents used to get their images on this thing. What is that? So another question we're asked quite a bit is, when should I review my prices? And you need to do this on a pretty regular basis. One of the triggers for that is, are you getting the sales you need? If you're not getting the sales you need, then you've got to reconsider your price list and redo it. Are your sales actually covering your cost of goods? Are you making a profit? Is your time being covered? And are you meeting any price resistance? And this is an interesting principle I'm going to talk about in a second. And of course, are you making a profit? We're all in business to make profit. So if any of those things aren't happening, well, then you need to review them. Resistance. So wait for it. If you're not getting resistance from your current clients, well, then you're too cheap. What did I just say? Yes, you heard me right. If you're not encountering any resistance from your clients, you're too cheap. So what do you do in that scenario? Well, we've worked with some photographers who have actually managed to increase their prices by 40% before they reach resistance. But you don't increase it on one block of 40%. So the principle is that you take your price, if you're getting no resistance, you add 10%. Because Weber's law suggests that if you increase your price by 10%, that many clients won't even notice the price increase. And those who do won't mind a 10% increase. But once you go over 10%, you get beyond that critical where you get them to think more than once about it. The second thing you do then is once you increase by 10% is you test again for a long period of time. Not once. You need to test over a period of time, a number of shoots. And if you're still getting no price resistance, well, then you increase it again by another 10%. And you keep going until you start getting resistance. So in the example client I talked about, it was only when we went up 10, 10, 10, and a further 10 that they started to get resistance. So what we did at that stage was we reverted back to where we were before the final 10% increase. And that's what worked. And that's how you find your sweet spot price for your sweet spot client. So reviewing other things that you need to consider. So obviously if you introduce a new product, you've got to consider your pricing again and revisit your pricing. If there's a change in sales strategy, so if you're starting to get your sales or marketing needs from a different source, you need to review your pricing and test the changes from that source. If you introduce a new genre, so if you start doing newborn in the morning, you've got to review your pricing. Or if you start doing a different type of photography, well, then you've got to consider that. If you move location or go into a new market, or if you start offering additional services, all those things will require it. And finally, it's the economy, stupid. So we hear that in politics all the time. That's all about the economy. And that's relevant to photography as well. In fact, they've proven that success of photography is absolutely linked to the economy. And that makes sense because it's something that you can do without when money is tight. But if you have money, you're more likely to spend. So if the economy is booming, there may be an opportunity to increase your price. But if you do increase your price, pocket the difference from where you were trying to go and keep it for the looming recession. Because there's always booms and busts. That's the way the economy works. So when the economy is going up, look at increasing your prices, but don't spend that extra money you're getting. Put it in your back pocket and keep it for when the economy goes down again. So any questions? Have we questions? Oh, we do. So for print sales, how do you manage the people who try and negotiate the remainder unsold prints? Karen, there's no negotiation, Karen. They're your prices. That's it. However, I do see photographers who might use the extra prints once they buy the top package, and let's say they've displayed 25 prints and their top package is 20. They may offer those extra 5 prints. They might throw them in, or they might say, if you give me a lead of somebody who you think might be interested, for every lead you give me, you can have an extra print. And if they ask, well, what do you do with the prints that aren't sold? You say, well, I archived them for a period of time. You can come back and buy them anytime you want. Or you say that I'm adding them to my portfolio. But don't do the hard sell thing of taking the print out and turning it up. I've seen photographers do that too. That's a disaster. It just pisses your client off. You wouldn't like you to be torn up, would you? So don't do that. For print sales, how do you manage the people who try and go? Oh, I've read that already. What's the normal image size for one of your matted boxes? Well, we have 2 main matted boxes. So we have an 11-14 overall size with 3 aperture sizes for the mats, 7x10 prints, 8x10 or 8x12. And we have an overall box size of 10x8. And the 10x8 box size, we have 2 aperture sizes for 7x5 and 8x6 prints. If they choose a payment plan, when do you hand over the product? If they choose a payment plan, you're using a payment provider, you do a credit check there and then with them. And the responsibility for the credit stays with the finance company, not you. So they've got to leave the product on the day, is my view. Even if you're running your own payment plan, just make sure that your deposit is big enough that you're at least breaking even, and then spread the rest over the period of time. There's very few people who won't pay, but my belief is they have to leave at the viewing, and you've got to structure your prices that they leave on the day with it. Question: what if a client insists on having only 2 or 3 digital files because they can't afford a higher package, but they do want you absolutely as a photographer? So they only want to buy 2 or 3 digitals and they want you as the photographer. Maybe you don't want them as a client. Unless, of course, you need their business until you get your ideal client. They're not your ideal client. How do you sign up to become an... Oh, I've answered that one already. Have you questions, Ina, that you've had? No, that's everything? Okay, so let's move on. So in summary, don't stress if you don't get pricing right, because you won't get it right the first time. It's about trial and tweaking and changing over time. You've got to absolutely think about and understand the profit you want to make. Don't let competitors rule your head. Yeah, I hear too many photographers saying, the going rate for this service in my locality is this. If the going rate is too low, they're not going to survive in business. 80% of businesses go out of business in the first couple of years. And that's what will happen then. So don't let them rule your head. The consultation is crucial. You absolutely have to nail that consultation so that your client knows what to expect, they understand what to expect, and you've built the trust, and you know that you've got the right client, and they know they've got the right photographer. Keep your price list clear and simple. A big, long price list will confuse. Decision fatigue will lead to no sale. Adhere to the 9 pricing principles. It's really easy for you to take your price list out now and compare them to the 9 pricing principles. At least start by fixing the ones that don't. Offer 3 to 4 collection packages, and you know I'm a big fan of the 4 collection packages because I want that big elite package as a price anchoring. Because by doing that, now my previous top package, Collection A, is now one of my 2 middle packages. So just by doing that, I'm going to sell more of Collection A. Price your middle package at your desired average order value. Now, not your current average order value, but price your middle package at what you want your average order value to be. Include a digital copy of all the prints that you sell. If you don't, you're going to annoy your clients, and your inquiries are going to dry up at the pre-consultation stage before you make booking. Give them an online gallery to satisfy the share and reap the referrals. So just to clarify that. So the online gallery is just to share, not to sell product from. You sell the product in the in-person sale, and the gallery is about driving referrals for you and allowing your client to share those images on social media and in person over a cup of coffee with a friend. Review your prices on a regular basis. So I would suggest you need to review your prices. If you make a change, you need to maybe even review them on a weekly, monthly basis. And then once the prices settle down, maybe each quarter. Sell yourself. Unless you believe in yourself, no one's going to believe in you. Be patient. It takes time to get this right. And do your sums and know your numbers. Too many photographers don't do their sums and absolutely understand their numbers. And at 3XM, we try and help with all those things. But let's go to some questions before I actually tell you how we can help you with your numbers further. Have we got a question? Is the online gallery already? Yes. So the online gallery is only of the images they've purchased in the in-person sale. Just those. So it's only about they having the facility to share the images that they've already bought from you. When you talk about digital copy, do you mean a 300 DPI reprintable file? Absolutely, the full res file. What is the normal size? I've answered that one already. After they purchase and leave, if they then send a referral, do you send them a gift? That's a really good question and a really nice thing to do. And I would suggest that if you want that client back, yes, you do. So any more? Okay, so let's move on. So let's talk about numbers. So at 3XM, why do we do these training and why do we create all these tools for you as photographers? And the reason why is our business can only be as good as your business is. So that's why we do it. And the only way we can continue to do it is if we support you, we hope that you will support us in time. But one of the tools we've created is Know Your Numbers Calculator. And this is free to anybody who registers on the 3XM site. That allows you go in and figure out what you want to earn from your business, identify what we talked about earlier, your fixed and variable costs, build your pricing packages, estimate how many of each package you intend selling this year. At the very end, it'll calculate for you whether you're going to make that income and create a profit to invest in your business. And it's a really simple tool to use and it's worth doing. I know many photographers who are creatives like me were put off by the numbers piece, but it's a really important thing to understand. So to join our 3XM Insiders group, so as I said a little bit earlier, you go to facebook.com/3XM Solution, join Insiders. In Insiders, you'll see a video, which is a summary, a 30-minute summary video of what we've done today, not the full webinar, but a summary of the key points. And you'll also, if you haven't yet downloaded our ebook, The Art of Pricing, you can find a link in 3XM Insiders to download that. And finally, for just joining us on this webinar, the code WebArt will work for 24 hours from this moment and to get you 15% off anything you want to buy from 3XM. Our next webinar will be the 9th of May, so keep an eye out for that. And at our next webinar, we're going to start discussing if you've got teenagers in a family portrait scenario, or if you're in the market where you photograph teenagers. In the US, seniors is a really big part of the business. So I'll be discussing how you find them on social media, how you market them on social media. What are they looking from a professional photographer? So join me in our next webinar on the 9th of May, and we go through some of those details. So any questions before we finish? What resolutions should digital files be? Absolutely high-res resolution. You've maximized the sale there and then give them the high-res, sell them the high-res files. You're not giving them, they're part of the package. Fantastic information. Thank you so much. You're very, very welcome. Anyone else lost a feed? I don't know whether we've had many people who've lost a feed. Hopefully you had not too many of you, because there's 72 on air, and I think we started with only a few more than that. So we've kept most of you, which is great. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your business, those of you who are customers, and those of you who aren't yet customers. We look forward to welcoming you to the 3XM family. So goodbye for now. I'll see you all again soon. Enjoy your day, enjoy your evening, and we'll see you on the inside on 3XM Insiders. Thank you.